All right. I think we are live. Let's go to our PowerPoint, and here we are. Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome to this week's module. We're going to explore this week, reading and video resources, all to answer the question, what are the teaching implications for cognitive learning? Specifically, you're going to dive into two teaching perspectives that primarily focus on cognitive learning. So let's get into it. Before I forget, it's not on the slide right now, but one of you guys in one of our meetings brought up that the due date for the action plan was tomorrow. That's a little tight even for me, so I pushed it to Friday. It didn't update properly as far as the due date goes, so I'm sorry if that freaked any of you guys out. Freaked me out too. But yeah, it's due Friday, the action plan. So don't worry. It's not really a lengthy assignment as well. Just let me know if you have any questions or concerns. But thank you for bringing that up, and I apologize for the confusion. On that note, I've really enjoyed your meeting with you guys so far. It's been really cool. You guys have such a diverse range of backgrounds, and it's been really nice getting to know you guys. But on to business. You'll recall from last week these two prevailing ideas about brain functioning, similar to a computer, right? And that's really where cognition and explorations of cognitive learning began. They've moved on from this point and then expanded and improved in a more nuanced way. That research is conducted in a way that we think about what's happening in the brain. But ultimately, cognition stems from these two ideas. Now, let's add on to that. Building on the idea of the brain as a computer in more detail, Atkinson and Shiffrin, these two cognitive scientists create this multi-score, multi-stage theory of memory that this flow chart and figure here is sort of displays. It's really a way for you all, as an educator, to get a sense of what might be happening as a learner, including yourself, is receiving input from the environment, so that when information is received by some memory processing system, again, that's the brain, sounds very much like a computer, it undergoes a series of transformations until it is permanently stored in your long-term memory. In the model that you see here, there are three stages of this memory system. There's the sensory memory on the left-hand side, the working memory or the short-term memory, and then there's the long-term memory. There's also the processes that are assumed to be responsible for transforming input from one stage of memory to the next. So as you can see, if you follow that diagram along, input, it comes from the environment. It's processed by your senses and received for an instant. If it is attended to, then it goes into your working or short-term memory, right? If it's to move that information to the long-term memory to be stored for later use, it goes through different sort of processes of encoding and retrieval, which are facilitated by rehearsal. The sort of repetition, practice makes perfect. We're repeating this, rehearsing, and these processes and actions. However, if you want this short-term memory information that students are working with to have a chance to be moved into the long-term memory, not only do they have to rehearse, but they also want to engage in a process of encoding. And that process is where they tie the new information to existing information. So you probably heard about the importance of eliciting prior knowledge, during instruction. Not only are you trying to elicit and learn where students' prior knowledge comes from, but it's also more intentionally tie what they're learning currently to knowledge that they already have. You can also have them organize the information, but to be frank, this is a little subjective, and they can do things like outlining. They can do concept maps or concept trees, mnemonics. These are all helpful ways to help students encode and organize material. So now, what are the teaching implications for a cognitive perspective on learning? So this week, you'll focus on the idea of successful intelligence, and it comes from Robert Sternberg's work, When We Teach for Success, successful intelligence, we focus on 3 areas of student development. Part of the triad: analytical, practical, and creative sort of process. And we'll talk about those a little bit in the next slide. But these are 3 different types of abilities that we really want to develop in students as they engage with the content in our discipline to further develop successful intelligence. Educators use a method called cognitive apprenticeship. So let me tell you a little bit about triarctic intelligence, and then we'll discuss cognitive apprenticeship. Sorry, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I'm a huge believer in cognitive apprenticeship, and personally. So as you see here, there's this triarctic theory of intelligence that Robert Sternberg has created over many, many years of research. These are the different types of abilities that you want to intentionally design when you're creating your learning experiences. You want students to develop their creative intelligence, makes sense, help them be imaginative or innovative. You want them to develop their analytic intelligence, help them go through these mental processes to solve problems, to encode information, and to be able to effectively retrieve it for later use, right? Makes sense? And then to round it out, you want them to have practical intelligence so they can apply what they're learning to everyday life. Do they have common sense? How do you develop common sense, in students? Some of the ways that educators work on this is by creating instruction that is socioculturally relevant. It should feel like a natural extension of what they would normally be thinking and doing when they're engaged in academic learning. You should also provide links between what you're teaching in the classroom with real world behavior. Again, this idea, of finding out what they already know to the best of your abilities and tie that instruction and that content to how it helps them better understand what they already know. Okay. And you should allow students with opportunities to be able to share their differences and their strategies of communicating that information. So another set of ways that we can do this is through the idea of cognitive apprenticeship, my personal thing that I've been excited about talking about. As the name implies, the model is based on the idea of apprenticeship. However, whereas apprenticing, you might typically think of like learning a skilled trade, like a blacksmith or something like that. With a cognitive apprenticeship, it really includes the cognition, thinking and reflecting pieces, okay? So in traditional schooling, there's other processes that we as disciplinary experts know and must make explicit to our learners. This includes content and practices. For example, in my field of science education, student learning chemistry should understand the concept of molarity, as well as to be able to design an experiment to calculate exactly how much a solute is contained in a sample. When we know the molarity of in solution volume, so we're not only understanding and helping students understand the concepts, but we're helping them through the process of being able to practice how chemists practice. Make sense? So cognitive apprenticeship blends the ideas of traditional apprenticeship with learning the skills and content of traditional schooling. It highlights cognitive and affective processes as this happens. Pretty cool. So let's talk about your tasks for this week. As I've told some of you already in our one-on-one meetings, the first 2 weeks are sort of like an introduction. Getting your feet in the shallow end of the pool to acclimate you to this environment. But it's going to start picking up now, so it's not to scare you, but to prepare you for the pacing from this point onward. This week, you're going to be interacting with several resources that are both video in nature and textual. Okay, so you're going to be reading as well. They all deal with strategies that you can use in your classroom to cognitively apprentice students into your discipline. The PDF of Sternberg and Grigorenko, I noted where to begin and where to end in the reading. If you're an overachiever, you can read more if you want, but that's not required. I selected this area specifically for this week. So the PDF is for the entire article or a longer section of it. But again, there's only certain points that I really want you to focus on in relation to your assignments. So pay attention to that, please. So please continue your reading journal. And the task that you'll have in addition to the reading journal prompts is to create 3 from them. Is you're going to you're going to work with your group on a task called Cognitive Apprenticeship for Successful Intelligence in my discipline. Okay, so that's the thing at the bottom. So our weekly On Track for Success slide, a few things I want to mention to you here when we're looking at keeping you on track for success in the course. Please connect with your group members right away and come up with a game plan for accomplishing the task. I recognize we're all very busy and we have crazy schedules and it's hard to link up with everyone, but please try to take some time to connect with your group members and in a way that you're not super rushed towards the finish line. You notice that even though you're looking at cognitive apprenticeship in a discipline, several of your groups have people from different disciplines. As I've told some of you already, I've grouped you guys intentionally for reasons like this. So I told you it would come up. So this is going to require some negotiation, okay, across your members. You're going to be asked to pick a standard, and in that standard, you're really going to be thinking about, how do you engage someone and try developing their triarctic intelligence through cognitive apprenticeship instruction. Make sure you talk with your partners about, what content areas and standard you want to do. You could even decide to do maybe 2 of them. There isn't like a super set guideline for this. You can negotiate with each other, and don't be shy to really open up about, what you do know, what you don't know, and what you want to know more about. Look across how you might change it all, your cognitive apprenticeship, depending on the standard that you're working on. But more than anything, you need to have, the one thing that I do want you to have for sure is one standard that you're focused on primarily. Okay, and it needs to be, again, a negotiation process between your group members to think about that in advance before you plan to meet. Okay, so explore the resources and the description of tasks in advance so that you have a sense of what you're expected to do and come with the required knowledge ahead of time. Make sure you also continue your progress on the clinical interview part 1, due May 29th or 30th, whatever it says. I think it's the 29th, and continue your reading journal prompts. So that's pretty much it for this week. I'm really excited to see what you and your group mates come up with for supporting triarctic intelligence in your area through cognitive apprenticeship. Thank you very much and have a great week.